So guys, a few videos ago, when I was walking around those late 1800s and beyond cattle ranches, those abandoned home sites, you know, from days gone by, I told you that I would tell you a story of not being on someone else's property that I didn't have permission for. I was not on his property, but he got downright belligerent, downright irate. I mean, ready. He wasn't wearing a gun, but he was ready to use it, if you know what I mean. And I actually did not. It was my responsibility to know where I was and the situation before I went there, which is why I highly caution anyone that wants to walk around, do metal detecting, try finding things. You better get permission. You know, you don't need the sheriff or a mad landowner who is armed to show up and try to take care of the situation themselves, you know. But I have this older friend. You've seen him on one video from a distance, metal detecting an old 1870s fort site area. He's an older guy and he can't do too much of that anymore, and unfortunately, but he loves Civil War history. He used to love that kind of thing, well, still does. He has compiled a book about a yard thick of all of the homesteaders in the surrounding counties that came out west following the Civil War, all of the Civil War veterans, basically, that moved to this area. He goes to all the cemeteries, finds all of them that were members of the GAR, I believe is what it was called. Right now I can't think of what the acronym means, but all the Civil War vets, either Union or Confederate, and he compiles all this information. Well, he was telling me once about this place called Duncan's Crossing. Now, it's a bit of a drive from where we are, but it was about this time of year, Thanksgiving, actually, beautiful day. I decided to go up there. He had been there, and it's right on Pawnee River. And it's really more of a creek, you know, a creek. But so many of our rivers in western Kansas, that's all they, you know, if they're 10 foot wide, it's a miracle. But he was telling me about this place. The Pawnee River up in that area is incredibly deep. I mean, the banks have to be, I bet they're deeper than this floor to ceiling here. I bet they're 20 feet deep, maybe, almost straight down. You got to find a path down and then back up again. Now, this was needing to be crossed back in the day by our military. It was a road, military road, like from fort to fort or whatever. And so the Army Corps of Engineers, I suppose, came in and built the bridge across the Pawnee River at that spot. And later, once they didn't need it anymore, I believe they sold it to a man of the last name of Duncan, and he actually turned it into kind of a toll bridge. I can't imagine there was so much traffic there he made that great of a living. Maybe it was just a cool side gig, you know. Either way, it became known as Duncan's Crossing. And this is where what my friend was telling me about, and he had been there. He had been way down in the creek, metal detecting, just looking around, and he was telling me about this. And here in Kansas, there's a list of 3 or 4 or 5 rivers that are actually public property, which is probably the case where many of you live. And I honestly didn't think anything about it. So this Thanksgiving, or, you know, Thanksgiving weekend, beautiful day, I just decided I'm not doing anything. I'm going to drive down there, see what it's all about. see if I can find this place. Took the metal detector, the shovel along, and away we went. So I was way down in this hole. I checked out, there's a little stone monument kind of thing and a plaque saying what the site is at that corner of the intersection of two gravel roads, you know. And I went down in there and I was finding stuff. Old cartridges, and I think I found some old, like, would have been the old ration tins, you know, tin cans. I forget what all I had found. And I kept hearing cars going by every now and then, and I'd hear some really creeping by slowly, and eventually I'd been there maybe half an hour or so. I heard sounded like a pickup just come to a stop. And so I thought, well, great, I'll see what's going on. So I climbed up, I left my shovel and my metal detector down there, and there was a teenage kid sitting in a pickup parked right behind my pickup. And I parked on the side of the road in the grass, obviously. And so I waved at him, popped my head over the bank, you know, and went over the barbed wire, went up to him, and I forget what we really talked about, but he said, well, my dad's coming, and I don't think he threatened me, but he was like, you're kind of in for it, kind of thing. So here comes this other pickup with a flatbed on it. It's farmer, so I know it's a local guy, you know. He got out of that truck and started to cuss me up and down like crazy, and the kid just took off. When Dad showed up, he left. You know, you could tell this was probably what the kid got on a regular basis. And we went back and forth. So what happened was, at that point, the river is on the north side of the road. This guy owned property on the south side of the road, and I'm guessing he had a lot of problems with deer poachers. Guys coming onto his land, shooting deer, so on and so forth. And it was all I could do, convince him that that's not what I was doing. I said, take a look in my truck. I had a .22 rifle in there for whatever reason. I said, I'm sure not shooting deer with that thing, you know. I kept telling him over and over what I was doing. He had his cell phone out. He was taking pictures of my truck, my license plate. Just kept repeating, I was in for it. I got you, you know, on and on we go. And I finally kind of convinced him, I think, that I wasn't doing what he thought I was doing. And then this other pickup was coming. He says, well, here's the landowner coming of the property where I was on the north side of the road, and oh, you're gonna get it now, you know, kind of thing. And it ended up being a guy and his wife about my age, roughly. And I just stood there in the road and waited. And before he could even open his mouth, I asked him, are you just gonna chew me out too, or are you gonna listen to what I have to say? He said, no, I'll listen to you. I said, I thought this river was public property, and I was down in it metal detecting. I said, I don't care, I will just leave, because I was pretty mad and, you know, just stressed. How when you get in a situation, your blood pressure goes way up and you just want to exit, you know. I said, I don't care, maybe I was wrong, but I have my shovel and my metal detector down there. I want to get them, and I will just leave. And he just said, yeah, okay. So that's what I did. And then I wrote a letter to this younger guy's dad, found out his name, and I explained the matter. I put everything I had found in the creek in a box, and I sent it to the guy. Now, it was my fault. I should have done more research to make sure that river was indeed public property, which the Pawnee River in Kansas is not. So, yes, you could say I was trespassing. I don't remember a trespassing sign there. Not that that's necessary. I mean, a guy shouldn't have to put up a sign every 100 feet to keep people off his property. But that just goes to show you, you never know when you are walking around on another guy's place. And I thought that thing was going to escalate quickly. Luckily, he didn't. Luckily, he did not push it any farther. I was just blown away. I mean, from the moment he stepped out of that truck, you would have thought I was Judas himself, you know. So, I don't know. Anyway, moral of the story is get permission. Right now it's bird season here in Kansas, pheasant and quail and so forth. And we have hunters all over the place from out of state. 2 guys were just not even in Orange from Texas on our road walking the tree line. I know they didn't have permission, but they just assume they can go wherever they want and everything will be just fine. And I don't know, that's assuming an awful lot. Anyway, I know this little story got quite lengthy, so I'm going to shut it off there. But anyway, it helped me get through wet sanding a fender. Well, guys, I wanted to take just a little bit of time this month on this video to introduce you to a new location that is temporarily mine to use to my discretion. I am in a very close neighbor's house. Very, very gracious guy. He's an older gentleman. He has daughters living on the coast, multiple coasts, opposite ends of the country. So this time of year, he is often gone until the spring. I approached him. It became very clear. It's becoming increasingly clear that if I'm going to continue with what I'm doing here, I needed to find a place to rent or what have you. He was too convenient not to ask. In the past, he's been a little hesitant and kind of negative about letting people use his shop. I think it was just he's gone half the year. He, you know, in a shed like that for an older guy, it just becomes a place to shove stuff. It gets dirty. It never really gets picked up or used the way it used to. And I think that was more the motivation than anything, to where he wasn't really willing. And it's his property, you know. There's nothing wrong with that. So, but anyway, there's just cool stuff everywhere. Everywhere you turn, there's something neat. But I'm just going to show you around just a little bit. You know, I want to respect his privacy, so I'm not going to show you absolutely everything. But I just wanted to introduce you, because you will be seeing videos in here. And I know not everyone watches these humble mechanic videos, but you know, it'll at least get a small fraction of you introduced to the place, so you know what's going on. The other 95% of the people who ask, I'll just ignore, I guess. I don't know. But I'm also going to introduce you to a couple of projects here, and I might as well start. There's at least one guy out there, one nice gentleman that knows all about this. I went and picked up this new project here. Another 48 Chevy. There's more than one of you out there that's going to be excited about me working on another 48. There are a lot of you that have found my videos because of the 48 Stylemaster, this guy included. And so we're going to be working on this. As you can see, I'm already getting into that. Already placed an order with Chevs of the 40s, and I was impressed because this is Friday after Thanksgiving. I think I placed this order Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, and here it is. Thanksgiving week, and here it is. Got a new fuel tank, straps. I know the liners have to be in there somewhere from Chevs of the 40s. Got a clutch kit. We're going to need that. And just all kinds of goodies. Sending unit. This is a Ron Francis 12-volt wiring harness kit. This gentleman wanted 12 volts in there, so we will accommodate. Full turn signal kit. And he really just wants it reliable. For now, we're just focusing, like the other 48, we are just focusing on getting it roadworthy. You know, you can take it to the parts store, to coffee, hanging out with the guys at McDonald's, drinking coffee, whatever you want. Go bowling. Full brake kit. Chevs of the 40s offers a complete brake kit, so pretty much everything you need for stock brakes. So I got all that. What's this guy? Transmission and torque tube ball, the U-joint kit. There's a goodie bag if I ever saw one. Beg my pardon, and I'll beg yours. Radiator cap. That could be the strap liners. Yeah. U-joint, I betcha. Gas tank spout, grommet. Synchronizer rings for the transmission. This transmission's acting really funny. Transmission small parts rebuild kit. Bushings for transmission. Main harness, grommet. The good old Okie bushing, and hood springs. Trying to think, I think that's pretty much everything. If there was something I couldn't get, the complete radiator hose kit with the GM script stamped on it and everything. So I'm going to be calling them again when we get closer to that point of going back together. Trying to think if there's anything else I just couldn't get my hands on right at the moment. But I haven't decoded this block or anything, but probably late 50s 235 has been put in here. 12-volt generator. I haven't even looked at his regulator, but it looks like a later one with a plastic cover on it there, so it's most likely 12-volt. It runs. It was quite exciting. The owner could only get it in first and reverse, he said, when we got there to pick it up. When we got to pick... Let me start that over. He said he had only been able to get it in first and reverse. When we got there to pick it up, I could only get it in second and third. So, and then the old monojet carburetor there, it doesn't want to run too well. I think mostly because of that. It sounds really good, actually, as far as mechanically. But the clutch and the transmission are just shot. They need desperate attention. So it was a bit of a challenge in the dark to load it, but we got it, no problem, and got her all the way home. So that'll all come out. Complete drivetrain. I'm probably going to put it up on stands pull the engine and transmission out the front, drop the rear axle out the back, and just work on everything out in the open. Brakes, we'll go through the steering. We will make sure the shock absorbers are working. Just so much stuff that we did already on that Style Master, and we'll kind of determine what I need to show you and what I don't. You know, we really don't need to repeat ourselves too much here, but there's definitely going to be a lot of stuff that I do on here that I did not do on the other one. I probably will look at least for a Model B carburetor for him. Just get this modernized one barrel off of here, you know, and get something a little simpler on there. I mean, that would probably work, but anything else? You know, and there are some videos I would really like to redo. My Chevy 3-speed transmission video when I rebuilt it on the Style Master. That was my very first video, and camera was really bad. Lighting was really bad. I think the audio cuts out at one point on one of them. And my editing skills were wanting, and probably I was wanting. I was not the refined actor that I am now, you see. So I think we can do a whole lot better with a video rebuilding the transmission. We got the tractor here. I want to strip that down, and then I'll push it out, and we'll work on the body parts for that. We've got the homemade paint booth in here, much better setup than I have, except my one complaint is there's a window in it, and I know it's the time of year, but constantly flies. Flies. And I painted this 2 days ago. Flies got in the paint. I have the shop vac over there. I vacuumed up all the flies on the window. I didn't turn on the lights until I was going to paint, making sure none of the flies gravitated towards the light, you know, just so I could vacuum them all up. Painted real quick, still got flies in it. So I got to deal with that. We got heat in here. This half of the shed is all insulated, which is wonderful. Then we got another project that you haven't seen yet. This is an 81 El Camino base model, and the guy and his wife just love the car. It was his father's car, and he's older than I am now, the owner. And it's got a 3.8 in it, so very early V6, you know, for Chevy. And he wants a V8. He wants new transmission. He wants fuel injection. Trying to think, and just basically get it going good. So I'm going to be working on that real quick. You'll see that, and you can probably tell in the background I'm changing oil on my personal vehicle on a lift. It's a lift. It's an honest to goodness lift. No, just go. Just go. You get the point. It has been, I know some of you have never, and maybe never will, have the opportunity to even use a lift, but I grew up with it, and for the last getting close to 20 years, I've not had one at my disposal, and it's so wonderful. So, changing oil on the van. So guys, that's what's going on. That's what you're gonna see. That's where I am. I know I'm not getting too specific here, but now I'm not taking over here. I have his complete permission and cooperation and encouragement to basically not really make it my own for the next half a year, but he is cool with basically anything I do in here. He wants me to use it. It's going unused for far too many years now. He's excited to have someone in here more on a daily, weekly basis, keeping an eye on the place, making sure nothing happens in here or in the house. I have spent 2 whole Fridays just cleaning in here. One day alone I spent in the paint booth because it was full of stuff. I've hauled 2 loads of garbage off in the pickup. He gave me the use of an old Ford pickup to use as a shop for the shop truck if I need it. And I'll continue to clean up, but I am not here to take over. This is not my property. I'm just cleaning. I will organize a bit so I can use it. There are tools everywhere where they were last used, and that's just a result of how life goes when you're in his position. So that's where I am. That's what's going on. Such a blessing. Absolutely a God thing, in my opinion. Such a blessing. I'm going to snap a few pictures of some cool things that I see around here. Don't ask to buy any of it. I'm not going to start being a little go-between for that kind of stuff. However, if any of you watching are huge fans of late 50s Lincolns, you can email me and I will contact him. He has a whole stockpile of parts. He liked the finer vehicles, you know. He liked pretty classy vehicles. Doesn't really matter what brand, but he always had something from the 50s or early 60s, the big substantial cars that were owned by the well-to-do of days gone by, you know. And late 50s Lincolns must have been one of his favorites, because up in that, going up those stairs, there's a whole stockpile of Lincoln parts that he would like to get rid of, move along to somebody that needs them. So email me if you would know anyone who would be interested in buying. My wife was just cruising Maine, you know, in town with the kids, had the window rolled down, kind of a nice day, and all of a sudden, she said it was like a gunshot went off, and the window regulator on this thing blew up. I've seen some weird things, but Chrysler, I mean, it's got pulleys and cables, steel cables. Just put a gear on a metal, you know, the old school thing and be done with it. I don't know. Anyway, tomorrow morning we're headed to my folks, 130 miles away. Next 2 days the highs are in the 30s. a guy better get the window working by the sound of it. So she ran to town to get some parts, and I'm working on paint. Anyway, not that you need to know about any of that, but I thought I would take the time while I'm letting stuff dry to do our little devotional here. I'm going to be reading out of Luke 1, verses 5 through 38. Now we're by the time you see this, Thanksgiving will be past. We're moving towards Christmas, and I won't be doing this again till after Christmas, so I thought I'd just do kind of a pre-Christmas story from the Bible. Starting in verse 5, in the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah, who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron. Both of them were righteous in the sight of God, observing all the Lord's commands and decrees blamelessly. But they were childless because Elizabeth was not able to conceive, and they were both very old. Once, when Zechariah's division was on duty, and he was serving as priest before God, he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to go into the temple of the Lord and burn incense. And when the time for the burning of incense came, all the assembled worshippers were praying outside. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to him, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and was gripped with fear. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you are to call him John. He will be a joy and delight to you, and many will rejoice because of his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord. He is never to take wine or other fermented drink, and he will be filled with the Holy Spirit even before he is born. He will bring back many of the people of Israel to the Lord their God, and he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the parents to their children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." Zechariah asked the angel, "How can I be sure of this? I am an old man, and my wife is well along in years." The angel said to him, "I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God. I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you this good news. And now you will be silent and not able to speak until the day this happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their appointed time." Meanwhile, the people were waiting for Zechariah and wondering why he stayed so long in the temple. When he came out, he could not speak to them. They realized he had seen a vision in the temple, for he kept making signs to them but remained unable to speak. When his time of service was completed, he returned home. After this, his wife Elizabeth became pregnant and for 5 months remained in seclusion. "The Lord has done this for me," she said. "In these days he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people." In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you." Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." "How will this be?" Mary asked the angel, "since I am a virgin?" The angel answered, "The Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she, who was said to be unable to conceive, is in her 6th month. For no word from God will ever fail." "I am the Lord's servant," Mary answered. "May your word to me be fulfilled." Then the angel left her. Have you ever considered the responses of these two people and the results of their response? On the surface, they seem to be pretty similar. They both ask, "How?" But the Lord's reaction is very different to their questions. Zach's question was, "How can I be sure of this? We're old." A miraculous event was unfolding right before his eyes, and he was voicing his doubts. I don't know about you, but I would like to think that if an archangel stood before me with a message directly from the Lord, I would believe it. First of all, it's interesting to note that Zach is a priest, a figurehead and leader in the church. Not that that is an immediate problem. After all, the church needs people willing to lead. But as we see all too often in today's world, way too many leaders in the church are willing to give up truth and righteousness. They have neglected to build their house upon the immovable rock of the Word and foolishly built it upon the same sand the world builds upon. They compromise with the Word and allow sin into the church, perhaps out of fear, perhaps to prevent the loss of their paycheck, or maybe just to save face with their peers and their congregation. Whatever the reason is, the fact is that as soon as you compromise with the Word of God, even a tiny little bit, you have just rejected the entirety of the Word. And to reject the Word is to reject Jesus, and then you're sunk. Do you think that's going too far? Well, maybe it is. God is way too big for me to understand. I know His love and the sacrifice He made covers a multitude of sins, and He will forgive us as long as we ask Him to. But my point is, if I am willing to compromise on a certain issue in His Word, I am no longer standing in faith on Him in His entirety. To say I trust in God 99% of the time sort of falls short of the mark. And we have just broken the first and greatest commandment to love God with all our heart, soul, and mind. And of course, like so many others in Scripture, Zach eventually gets to the place of complete obedience to God. But first God has to physically shut him up for 9 months to do it. It's like an old World War II fuel rationing slogan, was this trip really necessary? On the flip side, we see a common young lady, Mary. Common at least as far as society is concerned. However, as far as heaven was concerned, she was highly favored. Nevertheless, this highly favored girl, 6 months later, is visited by the same angel. Only a strange thing happens. She isn't made to be mute. No punishment for disbelief. That's weird. Why? Well, she obviously never doubted the word of the Lord. Now, Mary did indeed ask, "How will this be?" But it wasn't out of doubt. She and Zach, for that matter, would have known all too well the account of Abraham and Sarah and the birth of Isaac. I mean, honestly, Zach, the circumstances couldn't be more similar, right? Or the inability of Rachel to have a child with Jacob while her sister was in the delivery room constantly. Then when she is eventually expecting a child, they get into a whole disturbing competition with it. Anyway. Or Hannah, another woman who was unable to have a child until one day while praying, another priest who displayed even less righteousness than Zach gave her a prophetic word that she would indeed have Samuel. Mary knew these miraculous accounts of the Lord's blessing. She had no doubt that God could do this, but there was one glaring difference. She said it next, "Since I am a virgin." All of these others involved a normal physical relationship, but Mary knew it was not possible for her to have a child in the natural from a normal physical relationship. No, the sort of thing that was being told to her hadn't happened since Adam and Eve. The direct life-creating input from the Holy Spirit. And her response, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled." And that, my friends, needs to be our response. Each of us must have the heart of a servant towards our Father and His Word. If we claim to be Christians, it is absolutely necessary for us to be completely obedient to His Word, and to not doubt, but rather to stand courageously upon that Word. Pick your issue in the world, in the church, or both. Abortion, marriage, lifestyles, government, placing religious doctrine over righteousness, All of these are clearly outlined in the Word. God's position on these issues could not be clearer. Are you a Zechariah who only voices doubts and excuses? Or are you a Mary who, although you may not always understand what God is doing, you are willing to stand on His Word no matter what? I want to continue to encourage you to be in the Word daily. Most of these issues in the church, I believe, come from the fact that the people and the leadership alike do not even spend regular time in the Word. Find a church that speaks the Word and get involved. And if you have questions or doubts about anything, certainly talk to others who display the heart of Mary. But even more importantly, talk to God about it. He wants to hear from you. So this abomination is what they call a window regulator now, apparently. I don't know. I don't work on more modern cars too much anymore. You can see my cable just came unraveled. Things came out of place. I mean, there's springs hanging out. It's a mess. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get this replaced. You won't want to watch it. There'll be tears and probably not a whole lot of cursing, but there'll be tears. So I'm going to say Happy Thanksgiving to you guys a little late. Merry Christmas a little early. And Happy New Year probably just in time. So I'll be talking to you again this time in a month. And we'll get back together. We got a lot of projects going, as you saw. And yeah, I just appreciate you guys watching, hanging out with me, listening to what I have to say, so on and so forth. So we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.